This is Life Transformation Radio. Prepare to engage. Seatbelt activated. Download initiated. Your quantum journey of transformation begins in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Life Transformation Radio. Hi, I'm Rob Actis, best-selling author of The Law of Action, voice actor, business mindset coach, the podcast whisperer, and Mr. Action himself. Here at Life Transformation Radio, we are committed to share more about real life, love, the power of positivity, romance, and of course, laughter. We care about helping others find their internal drive and purpose. We celebrate life's challenges and overcoming them. On the show, my guests are amazing people who are forces for good in the world around them and live a life of transformation. My guest today does just that. Today, in this episode, Michael Unbroken and I discuss how to be the hero of your own story. So if you want to learn how to become unstuck in your life and find your way out of the vortex so you can be the hero of your own story, this is the show for you. Michael Unbroken, From Homeless to Hero. Michael is the author of the best-selling book, Think Unbroken, is a coach, mentor, and educator for adult survivors of child abuse. Michael spends his time helping other survivors get out of the vortex to become the hero of their story. Michael hosts the Think Unbroken podcast, has been featured guest on Entrepreneurs on Fire, Ask Gary Vee, Mental Illness, Happy Hour, Shift, and over 200 other podcasts. And right now, Life Transformation Radio. Michael is also the founder of Pods of Purpose, is on a mission to end generational trauma in his lifetime through education and information. Michael Unbroken, welcome to Life Transformation Radio.
What's up, bro? I'm super excited to be here.
Dude.
I would love if you just introduced me every time I do anything ever.
Okay, I'll do that. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. And Michael Unbroken.
Yeah, exactly. Hit it.
I gotcha. All right. So today we were going to talk about how to become unstuck in your life. And before we press record, Michael and I were talking, and you heard in the intro that we were talking about adult survivors of child abuse. So I just want to give you the trigger warning in advance. Today we're going to be talking about adult survivors of child abuse. And before we started, we had a conversation and we discovered that Michael and I have something in common. I am an adult survivor of child abuse, as Michael is. And what makes it really unique is we're going to talk about a subject that very few people talk about of male adult survivors of child abuse. And that is an adult survivor of child abuse who is a male, but was molested by a woman.
Yeah, man. I think about this a lot, and like a lot of people, I have a pretty dark story, and I don't think that it is to be overshadowed or overlooked or to be compared. And I'll always like to start this when we go into heavy conversations, like, please just do not compare your story to mine. I don't live for you. I don't breathe for you. We have a very, very different experience. Are there parallels? Very likely. Have we done some of the same things? Probably, but it's just at the end of the day, it's not the same. And until this moment, you may never have known me. So please don't look at my story and go, oh, it was so dark, so bad. A, I don't want nor need your pity. And B, it's really important to know that no matter where we start, we can create the life that we want to have. And I just a little catalyst or a little context before we jump into it. Rob, I think that one of the really important aspects of the healing journey is to talk about the things that have happened. Now, I will preface this. Before you and I could ever have this conversation today, I've had this conversation in my therapist's office, with my coach, in my support groups, in my men's groups. So for now, well over 12 years, I've been having these conversations. So I want people to understand, like, this probably isn't the format for you to talk about the worst shit in your life for the first time. You might want to save that for a different space. And it makes it every single time I share stories like this, every time that I get into the crux of my background, I always think about it's just another peg in that healing board. I'm another moment removed from it. It doesn't carry the weight, the power of a significance, right? There was a period of time early on in my life when I was, 26, 27. I'd sit in my therapist's office, dude. I'd just be like a robot, or I'd be bawling out of control, right? Having no emotional control in my life. And so, growing up, I think that it'd be really important if I give you a bit of context of my background. Because if we just jump into that, they'll be like, oh, that's the thing. But I grew up in Indianapolis. My mother was a drug addict and alcoholic. And in fact, when I was just 4 years old, she cut off my right index finger. And,
wow.
People will have that response. Yeah. I mean, that's where we start this story. And so that's why I gave you the forewarning. And she married my stepfather, who was massively abusive. Dude, I mean, he'd kick the crap out of my brothers and I, put me in the hospital multiple times. He's the kind of guy that drag a kid out of bed in the middle of the night and beat him up because he was drunk, right? That's what we're talking about. And I spent a lot of my childhood really impoverished. I mean, we were on food stamps and WIC and government subsidized housing. We were getting bounced around place to place. In fact, I lived with over 30 different families as a kid, because we were always getting evicted or punted somewhere. And I grew up in the Mormon church. And growing up that way as a biracial kid in the hood is super fucking weird. So just so you know, it's like a weird experience. And so, at one point, and we'll go deeper into this as we go, of course, but at one point I was staying at one of the homes of the Mormon church families, and one of the mothers from the church molested me. And, that was a story that I shared with my mother, being like in my head, knowing that doesn't feel right, right? Getting my head slammed into the wall by my stepdad, I was like, oh, that's normal. I guess this is just part of life. But this other thing, I was like, whoa, this is really weird. So I tell my mother, and, here's the thing you have to understand. We were surviving because of the church. Right. They were paying our bills. They were giving us food from the pantry. When my mom was in rehab or on a bender or gone, like, they would help us. And so I go and I tell her, and she goes, that didn't happen. Don't ever talk about that again. And so I carried that secret for a long time. It wasn't until I told my high school girlfriend when I was 19, I was out of high school at that point, but I was 19 and I told her. I'd never shared it. So you're talking about almost a little bit over a decade keeping that secret as a child. And so, a lot of craziness happened in my childhood. When I was 12 years old, my grandmother adopted me because my mom and my stepdad were always beating the crap out of each other. My mom had disappeared at one point for a little bit over 6 weeks. And I was living in a house with no electricity and no running water. I was stealing food from the Big Lots on the corner of 30th and Georgetown in Indianapolis to survive. Taking a shower at school. Nobody knew, right? Because everybody was used to me being the poorest kid who always smelled bad because I wet the bed, right? Trauma, obviously, and had a learning disability. And so it was not uncommon. People were just like, yep, whatever. He's just him. It's fine. And for whatever reason.
It's amazing. I was going to jump in. What's amazing is that
please.
There's so many children that are currently going through or have gone through so much, and how resilient children are. And it actually breaks my heart that they have to be so resilient. But it's amazing the human condition of children and how resilient they are and how they just not get over it, but figure it out. Yeah. And they don't just survive. I like to say, we thrive. Because you can't change your past and you can change your future. But I really my heart breaks and is just filled with joy that children have the resiliency to survive some of the terrible things that have happened. I mean, there's a lot of shows on Life Transformation Radio where I'm just like, I just can't air this show. People have gone so deep. And it's so traumatic that it just can't see the light of day. But to see how children have thrived and overcome, and it's pretty remarkable. So kudos to you, man. Seriously.
I didn't know what else to do, Rob.
Right.
It's like, shit,
Yeah.
that's my life, bro. And, and then I get that too, having Think Unbroken podcast and all the people I've interviewed, over the course of the last 5+ years, there's some shows in there too, where like at the end I was like, I don't know, man. Now being a trained speaker, speaking on some of the biggest stages in the world, interviewing being on some of the biggest shows like this, it's like, I know what stories I will share.
Right.
Because I know the edge, and we're on the edge right now. Right. And I'm like, okay, we don't go deeper than that. Cause then you kind of get into this weird territory. And, so growing up like that, my grandma comes, she adopts me. I'm biracial. I'm black and white. And my grandma adopts me, and you'd be like, oh, that's great. Things got better. But my grandma's an old racist ass white lady from a town in Tennessee you never heard of. And so insert identity crisis.
Oh, man.
And so I'm like, it was so bad. We had a copy of Hitler's autobiography, Mein Kampf, in our kitchen. My uncle's a part of the Aryan Brotherhood, and my black friends, we were in a black neighborhood. My black friends weren't allowed to come in my house. Right. So at 12 years old, I just start getting high all the time. And I don't mean just like experimenting. I mean, like, we are smoking as much weed as humanly possible. I'm popping pills. We're stealing stuff from the drugstore. We're getting drunk. Next thing you know, I'm 15 years old. I'm getting expelled from school. And so I'm running the streets. I'm breaking in houses, stealing cars, getting shot at. Like, we're hurting people. We're running from the cops. Like, it's gnarly shit, man. And I got a call at home one day. My grandma was like, you have to go to school tomorrow. And I'm like, for what? They kicked me out. Like, what am I going to go to school for? And I go to school to see what's up. I'm sitting in the library, and the guidance counselor's there with a woman I've never seen. And they're like, someone volunteered your name for a last chance program. And so you've got an opportunity here to figure this out, or we're done. And I was like, well, I don't want to be the only idiot in my family not to graduate high school. So let me go figure this out.
Right.
And that last chance program was phenomenal because I learned a lot of skills that have carried over even to today. Right. I mean, at 16 years old, I learned how to write a resume and cover letter and build a computer. It was absolutely amazing. And in that, for the first time in my life, I actually got straight A's. And I post my report card online sometimes because I think people think I'm making this up sometimes. And so maybe it's just my own justification. I'll post it. I had straight F's until I put a restraining order on my mother.
Wow.
You talk about the impact of trauma.
Yeah.
And so I do that. I start getting straight A's. I'm captain of the wrestling team. I'm on the football team. I'm dating a head cheerleader. I feel like part of that moment of putting a restraining order on my mother made her really like go, oh, wow, hold on. This drug addiction I have is really detrimental. This alcoholism is ruining my family. And so she got sober for the first time. She was never sober. And my grandmother lets her move into the house. And within a month, my mom is back to being a full-blown alcoholic and drug addict. And I look at it now and I actually understand something I didn't understand then. She was in the place of her abuse. She was triggered. She was going, and like, this is the thing, like, I don't ever want to try to like defame my mother. I only ever share true factual experiences. What I've come to recognize now, having worked with some of the greatest minds in trauma and abuse on planet Earth, I have over 30 trauma-informed certifications. I've interviewed everybody. And the one thing I know to be true is hurt people hurt people. And so when I think about at that age, now 18, mother back in my life, watching my grades go back to straight F's, I get kicked out of school again, don't graduate. And so to this day, I don't have a high school diploma or a college education. And what happened was I have to go to this summer school, and the teacher comes up to me. He goes, dude, we're just done with you. We're going to give you a diploma. Just don't even come back to class. Pick it up on graduation day. And I'm like, this is crazy. And so I'm like 18, trying to figure out life. And I I remember having this moment after getting fired from a warehouse job. Like I was putting microchips into motherboards every day, 12 hours a day, 5 days a week with a 25-minute break. Making, wow. I think I made $9 an hour. I mean, this was like fucking 20 years ago. I don't remember. And I'm sitting in the car. I got fired. And I was like, there's got to be a solution in here, man. Like it ain't all about, I can't all be poverty and homelessness and abuse and this chaos all the time. And I was like, got it. I got to go make money legally. And so I made a declaration to myself. I said, by the time I'm 21, I want to make $100,000 a year legally. And that part was very important, Rob, because I got family in prison for life. Literally to this day, I've been in handcuffs more times than I can count. And my 3 childhood best friends have been murdered. So, dude, I knew where I was going. I knew it. So I made that declaration. I started leveraging those skills I learned in the Last Chance program. And I went on like 200 interviews over 2.5 years, getting told, no, you're not qualified. No, you're not qualified. I remember like, how could I be qualified if you don't give me the opportunity? And I ended up landing a job with a Fortune 10 company. And when I was 21 years old, I made $96,800.
Wow.
So I came a little bit short of my goal.
Yeah.
But I got right there. And so I just chased money for the next 6 years. That's all I did. And it destroyed my life, man. Because the thing that I've come to discover is you have to have massive clarity about who you are, what you want to build, and how you want to live. And I realized like money is never going to fulfill me. You hear this all, you know this, you hear this.
Yeah.
I've come to the conclusion you have to experience it for it to hold true.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so here I am, I'm 26. I've made almost $1 million and I'm 50 grand in debt. I'm 350 pounds, smoking 2 packs a day, drinking myself to sleep. I'm high from the moment I wake up I'm high all the time. And, my girlfriend, I'm cheating on her. I'm having sex with all these strangers. I'm sitting here and my brother goes, never talk to me again. You're not my brother. My best friends will not hang out with me. They're like, you're a fucking loser. And I'm at rock bottom, dude. And I wake up this one Saturday morning and again, I'm 350 pounds. I'm sitting here smoking a joint, eating chocolate cake.
You're not 350 pounds anymore.
I am not, sir.
That's a big boy.
And
that's a big boy.
And dude, I'm sitting here, I'm eating chocolate cake, smoking this joint, and I'm watching the CrossFit Games. Like, dude, that's like, where's rock bottom is like, hi, I'm home.
Right.
And I was at a place in my life at that time where like, dude, brushing my teeth was the hardest thing I did all day. Like really, it was such a struggle just to get out of that bed. And I go in the bathroom, I look at myself in the mirror, and for whatever reason, dude, I remember being 8 years old and the water company had come and turned our water off. Now, look, they were always turning off our water, our heat, our electricity. Again, we got evicted so many times, like I lost count. 30 is only the estimate. I have no idea how many people we actually lived with. But one day, this one particular day, for whatever reason, I go in the backyard, I grab this little blue bucket, I walk across the street to our neighbor's house, and for the first time, I stole water. And I remember being like, when I'm a grown-up, this will not be my life. And Rob, it wasn't my life in a lot of ways, right? Look at it on paper, things weren't that bad, right? But I was still that hurt, lost little boy. And as I looked in the mirror, having this memory, recognizing the truth that I'd broken the promise to myself, I asked myself, what are you willing to do to have the life that you want to have? And the answer was no excuses, just results. It's like a freaking lightning bolt from the heavens. And in that moment, I knew I had to stop being a victim. I had to stop blaming all of the things that happened in my past, all of the pain, all of the suffering, all the guilt, all the shame that I carried. And I knew none of that was my fault, but I had to embody it and recognize the truth of the moment. Everything from that moment forward was on me. And 12 years later, here I am talking to you.
I'm glad you're talking to me. And it's incredible. I just think about you being 8 years old, and 8 years old is just an innocent time for a child. And to have that blue bucket and walking across the street because you want some water, which is, we cannot survive. We could go, as humans, we can take a lot, but without water, we're toast. I mean, even food, we can go away, but water, you have to have that. And I just landed really hard because I'm very visual, so I can see you walking across the street with your little bucket, and it's amazing how life. So you said when you hurt other people, and I am so blessed. I was molested when I was 13 years old by my stepmom, and that's a whole nother show. But the one thing, it was very traumatic. I had a stepdad that was abusive and violent, just very similar to you. Used to get beat by a belt all the time. And it wasn't for anything I did. It was for stuff that he thought I might be doing. He wanted to make sure that the punishment was already there in case I did something, which is just, mental trauma and physical trauma. But I will say one thing. I don't know how I got across in my head, but I loved to read ever since I was like really little. Like I always just devoured books. Someone put the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill in front of me. And they also put the book, The Master Key to Riches. And it's funny about The Master Key to Riches because I am an audiobook narrator and actually narrated The Master Key to Riches and Grow Rich with Peace of Mind. And they're not about money the way that I saw it, but it was really all about people and relationships. And I strongly believe that my team, and I'm talking about the universe, the spirit, got behind me and put people in my life that really helped me get over me being molested, because it happened really quick. I was able to talk to people that were so helpful. And I had such a challenging life at that time, but they helped me get through it so fast. And I did the opposite. So I had a traumatic childhood, and I did the opposite of you, and I became really good. I became, just a different drive. And it's fascinating. And the fact that you deal with so many people that have experienced trauma, how we deal with it. We either go all the way over and we're, 350 pounds, we're smoking weed, we're eating, not good food. And then there's people that we just have to get in, like, we're just going to be, we're going to just block it out that way. But I do acknowledge that I went through a ton of therapy. And it was great because I had it in school. My mom was kind enough, and I was a free lunch kid. I used to, I had the trauma of the free lunch line, and, but she got me into counseling at school, and they really took me under their wing, and they really cared for me. I was, she was a single mom at that point, and it was really I feel so blessed that incredible angels came into my life and gave me guidance. Because if not, who knows where my future would have been. And I've had, trials and tribulations and had, other things happen. But I will say that I'm not a victim, as you said. And I even step it up even more for being a survivalist, but to thrive from it. I've learned from it. I have incredible compassion for other people that have been through it. I love this medium of podcasting, and that we can bring these conversations to light, because I think people need to hear them. And I think it's so important, because when they hear them, they're hearing these conversations at the right place at the right time. And there's a reason that they're hearing them. And so, we get to be this catalyst for survival and for thriving through the trauma.
Yeah. I love this medium also. It's played a huge role in my life in a lot of different ways. And a lot of it is because like what people fail, I think really, and this was me probably early on, like people fail to recognize like these conversations can be mentorship. Like these conversations can be coaching and guidance. And one of the big mistakes I made in this space is I started my first podcast in 2008. And I wish I would have kept the damn thing because I didn't know what I was doing. Like we were on Skype trying to record stuff. Nobody really knew.
Okay. And, I jumped in at 2006 doing podcasts. And it's so funny because now anybody can do a podcast. It was so much effort. The internet was just getting started. It was so much effort to figure out how to get audio. Oh my God. Unbelievable. And if I would have kept it, it was amazing. Yeah.
Totally. I think about, it's easy to like think about, but like it was so difficult because you had to figure out how to upload an audio file onto your own server.
Yeah.
You had to host it so that, you had to host it. And then you had to figure out how to download that audio file to go and fit onto, your iPod Zoom, whatever those stupid little square guys were. And I remember just being like, this is so irritating.
When you press the button and then you have to upload the RSS file and everything, it was crazy.
And if you had an extra colon somewhere, would it work? And you have to go read all the code line. Anyway, sorry, I digress. It's funny because rarely do I find people who have that commonality. And but you're right. And I think that this platform, this medium, has been a beautiful way for me to grow. I'm always learning. It's put me in contact with amazing humans. There's a 0% chance I would talk to 95% of the people who have been on my show, 99% without this platform. And to learn from them and to be able to know that my audience gets to learn from them and recognize that we're doing it, A, because it's fulfilling for us, but B, because it serves others. I would kill to have this stuff 12 years ago when I started. Dude, it was almost impossible. Like I was going to therapy and I was going to, reading personal development books and it was just always like this consummate struggle. Like, I mean, YouTube had just started kind of being a thing. So I would find these personal development people and, you fast forward, I think it was probably like, I don't know, 2011, 2012, I came across Brendan Burchard. And Brendan's like the OG for me, right? Like he's the one, because of the information he was putting out, really started me on this journey. But dude, I was terrified to spend, I think it was $47 for his course. I was like, 47? Are you crazy? This ain't going to help me. And when that started, this really slow burn into personal development, where now it's like I've read hundreds and hundreds of books. I've got multiple certifications in trauma education. I've been able to speak on some of the biggest stages in the world, but it all really started with like, I'm going to invest in just learning. And I think that's what was the most beneficial thing for me is education. Because here's what's fascinating. I actually did the math on this probably 6 weeks ago. So it's pretty fresh for me because I was putting together a course and I had somebody email me like, your course is too expensive. I was like, dude, this course is $100. And I get it because I used to think that about all of this.
Right.
And then I put together numbers because I wanted to prove to him that $97 is not that expensive. I just said, you got to change your mindset, a way to think about money. And I added it up. And I've spent over $265,000 and over 6,400 hours on therapy, personal development, coaching, and mentorship in the last decade. And the reason why I share that, because some people are analytical and like those numbers are like, they create value. And I was looking at it for myself and I was like, dude, that's like 4 Ivy League degrees, right? That's like the amount of time I could have written 9 dissertations, right? I could be like a magna cum laude double PhD. And it was like, I am, but at my own life. And that's the thing. If you go look back at all of my grades through elementary, through high school, D's and F's, D's and F's, D's and F's. I hate school. To this day, I hate school. But I am so incredibly literate in this thing that I'm passionate about because I decided to dedicate my life to it. And I never anticipated being a coach. I never anticipated having a business partner in Grant Cardone. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. If you know Grant Cardone, he's this eccentric billionaire dude. Like, why would he, and it's like that crazy stuff happens to me. And then I look at this, there's a wall I have over here with pictures of me with dozens of the most influential people on planet Earth. And I'm one of them. Dude, I'm the number one trauma coach in the world. Why? Because I had to do it for me. Bro, I had to pull myself out of the fire of this shit. I had to figure this out. I had to learn how to love myself. Right? The hardest thing that we will ever, ever, ever do. And the thing that I'm always trying to teach people is very simple. This whole journey, like healing, learning to love yourself, being the hero of your own story, the theme of this conversation is very simple. I can summarize it in one sentence. Be okay with the reflection in the mirror. Now, getting there, that's a little complicated, right? It requires a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of energy, a lot of showing up. I have an acronym called TEAM. It's going to require time, effort, energy, money. Chances are you got to invest one, but you probably got to invest all four, right? And you got to show up and you have to have clarity about the life that you want. There is a gap. There's a whiteboard on the other side of my studio and it says close the gap in giant letters. And here's what the gap is. See, where we are today is based on all the information that we have. We're only able to be where we are today based on all the things that we've done to this moment. On the other side of the gap is the person that we want to become. Well, you can't become that person yet. Y-E-T, arguably the most important word in the entire English language, or any language for that matter, yet, because it means that it's plausible that you can have that. But you have to recognize that gap is simply the basis of you have not yet acquired the skills, education, and understanding to become that person.
Right.
It's just like the podcast thing, dude. We started this and we sucked. We were terrible.
Absolutely.
Fucking off. Dude, the early show, they're so bad. But I did it anyway. I put them out anyway. I had people email me and be like, dude, your show, this background is scratchy. I'm like, yeah, I know, dude. I'm trying to figure it out. And it's like,
you have to start from somewhere. Like you have
that's
to,
the point.
Exactly. And that's the one missing point that I think people take for granted. They're like, oh my God, you're an overnight success.
Yeah,
No.
for 12 years, I've been an overnight success.
Exactly.
Right? Putting it in, showing up every damn day.
Yeah. Mastering your craft and walking the talk and being, there is no overnight success. There is no overnight success. Everybody you see that's successful, they have put in the work. It's just the way that the universe works. There really is an overnight success, and it could be quicker than you think. However, people, all of a sudden, Grant Cardone, you brought him up. People think he's overnight success. He's not. He's been working and working and working and working and working and working. And there really is no overnight success. Even recording artists, there's no recording artist that's overnight success. They have been grinding and grinding and grinding and grinding and refining their craft. And people that all of a sudden are thriving in relationships. Well, it's not an overnight success. They have been doing the work on themselves and overcoming the obstacles that they've had in their life and transforming their life into being the people that they need to be to have the success that they need to have in their life. And that is directly from the Miracle Morning of Hal Elrod, which I'm the narrator of. So I've heard that many, many times. You need to be the person you need to be to have the success that you want. You really need to be that. You can't be broken and have the success. You have to do the work.
Yeah. And the thing I think also, Rob, and I love that book, by the way.
Me too. All of them.
I do. I agree. Well, you get a lifetime of information in 3 hours. It's incredible.
Yeah.
There's a 0% chance you're ever going to be who you want to be if you don't try to be who you want to be. 0% chance. And people get stuck in that space of becoming based on the impact of the past, right? You talked about it. You had to go through something to overcome. You had to make a cognizant decision to do that and a cognitive decision to do that. You had to decide to become you. One of the introductory chapters of my first book, I titled it Create You. because that's literally what you're doing. What I recognized at 27 years old was I had zero confidence. On paper, everything looks great, but I can promise you, I have never bought a pair of shoes that made me love myself. And so realizing and understanding I had no confidence, I had to backtrack and reverse engineer why. One of the most important things that I believe that I'm able to do as a human being is ask the question why, not for the sake of asking why, but instead for the sake of having and creating understanding. And so I really started getting into this. I was like, why don't I have confidence? Why don't I believe in myself? Why am I fat? Why do I smoke 2 packs a day? Why do I always cheat? Why do I do this? Why do I do that? Like really not berating myself, but just being inquisitive, creating foundation and framework. And so what I did is I recognized there's causation and correlation to everything in life. This, I think, is probably the more important missing factor in these conversations. If you want to figure out how you get to where you want to go, you have to figure out how you got to where you are. And when you grow up in traumatic households, have traumatic experience as a child, have adverse experience as a child, what you have to recognize and understand that as an adult, you're operating with an operating system that has been installed in you since your childhood. And when you have a household where the most dangerous thing that you can do is be yourself, like mine, dude, the fastest way for me to get my head slammed into a wall was to have an opinion. The fastest way for me to get abused, to get starved, to get locked in a closet was to ask for something I needed. And so think about this for a second. If that's the constitution in which we're growing and the brain's primary function and service is survival, then the brain is going to do its primary function of assessing stimulus for survival and then following that up with creating meaning so it can have an understanding of why it must survive. Then that means that when you are being you, it's dangerous. The brain says, oh shit, I better not be me anymore. And what happens is as a child, the worst part of this, Rob, is it brings safety to your life and it serves a purpose for a period of time. So when you're 8, 12, 18 years old, it serves you. It keeps you safe. And then you're 25, 30, 64 years old, and you don't know how to say yes, and you don't know how to say no, and you don't believe in yourself because you've never been allowed the space to figure it out. And the only way you figure it out to close that gap to become you is not as simple as listening to a podcast or reading a book. It's about having the willingness to step through the discomfort of the unknown. Because again, the brain comes to survival. The brain does not know healthy relationships, kind friends, not being in debt, being physically fit, not smoking 2 packs a day, drinking yourself to sleep, lying to, that's terrifying. Holy shit. You mean that stuff over there? Well, I don't know, man. I kind of like this chaos shit. And then you're over here in this chaos. And my clients, when they tell me this, I pause immediately. They go, man, I thrive in chaos. I go, yeah. Don't you want to thrive in happiness and joy and love and peace and companionship and hope and friendship and abundance? I don't know about you, Rob. That sounds a lot better, bro. And so
absolutely.
I sit here and I look at it and I go, you must have a foundational understanding of causation and correlation, which starts with reverse engineering where you are at today in your life with the question of why, while simultaneously balancing one truth. You are not culpable for anything that happened in your past, but everything from this moment forward is on you. And if you want to close that gap, you must make a decision and take action. And then you sprinkle in a little bit of patience, a lot of grace, and a whole bunch of asking for help.
Yeah.
And on a long enough timeline, again, no overnight successes. On a long enough timeline, you will look in that mirror and you will recognize, I do love myself.
Yeah. Michael, man, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. It was super great to connect with you and to have this conversation. I really want to say thank you.
Yeah, man. It's an absolute pleasure, man. Thank you for having me.
If you want to reach out to Michael, you can hit him up at thinkunbroken.com. Easy domain. Don't even need to spell it. It's thinkunbroken.com. And you can check him out. Also, check out his podcast. Incredible. And I'm just really happy to have you here today. One quick question before we wrap up. Life transformation. What does that mean to you?
I mean, that's everything, dude. I mean, it really is. If you sit here and you look at this and you recognize what I believe to be the most empirical truth, like we live in the Matrix. Maybe not literally, but if we did, you wouldn't even know.
I think we live in the Matrix.
But I do. Man, Rob, I've done things that are impossible. And I'm doing things that nobody believes that I can do. And all I do is I sit in it and I believe it and I visualize it and I take ridiculous amounts of actions and then it happens. And that's transfer. That's it. That's the whole thing. LTR is that in a nutshell. You can do it, but you got to decide, man.
I love it. Thank you for being here today. And thank you so much for your support and taking the time out of your busy and precious day to listen to Life Transformation Radio. I so appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me, along with my very special guest, Michael Unbroken, to touch your heart, move your soul, and inspire you to live a life of transformation. I'm Rob Actis. Until next time.
This is Life Transformation Radio. Download complete.